It's a big Thursday night game for the playoff hunt, and there are multiple injury situations to watch. My name is Joe Dolan, and this is the Fantasy Points Daily Lineup for Thursday, December 15th, 2022.
It's time for the FantasyPoints.com Daily Lineup. Staying on top of the latest news and updates around the NFL. Rise and shine, folks. We're taking the field. Here's your host, FantasyPoints.com's Joe Dolan.
We don't yet know who will be starting at quarterback for the 49ers tonight. Brock Purdy is listed as questionable for Thursday's game at Seattle with oblique and rib injuries. This is per Jennifer Lee Chan of NBC Sports Bay Area. Now, it appears Purdy is truly questionable. The fact that he got limited practices in all week is a good sign, but if the Niners determine on Thursday that he can't go, veteran Josh Johnson would get the start. Johnson has plenty of experience and can hold the fort down, but Purdy is a new local legend in the Bay Area and has played well in his brief action this year. Now, it's possible this comes down to warm-ups, though we do expect to know before then, so just keep an eye on Twitter and whatever apps you use for fantasy. And in our first running back spot, Kenneth Walker will play tonight, barring something unforeseen. Walker doesn't have an injury designation for Thursday's game against the 49ers per John Boyle of the Seahawks official website. And it's a bit surprising that they don't even have a designation for Walker, who left week 13 early with the ankle injury that cost him last week. He never came close to playing, by the way, with 3 straight DNPs heading into the loss against Carolina. Now, DJ Dallas also didn't play with an ankle injury of his own, which left Travis Homer and Tony Jones to combine for 5.6 fantasy points and 32 scrimmage yards in a loss. Dallas, by the way, is questionable this week. Now, while Walker is basically a must start for most fantasy players, given the nature of the RB position, I am understanding of those who are skeptical. It will be in a brutal matchup against San Francisco, which has allowed a league low 15.5 fantasy points per game to the running back position this year. At running back 2, can DeAndre Swift be a running back 1? The extremely talented yet extremely frustrated running back once again found himself in a committee with Jamal Williams and Justin Jackson in last week's game against the Vikings, with Swift seeing only 9 touches for 39 total yards and no scores in a game that had 57 points scored and Jared Goff throwing the ball all over the place, just not to Swift apparently. And it's so difficult to watch this because we see the Lions continue to hand the ball off every game and involve their backs, yet Swift, who is the highest drafted back on this squad, both in reality and in fantasy, and the highest upside player, arguably, sees minimal touches. But there was something that I mentioned on this show last week, different last week as opposed to week 13, when Swift looked like he was all the way back. He was on the injury report. That's not the case this week. Remember, even though DeAndre Swift was getting full practices in last week, he was listed on the injury report with an ankle. And Justin Rogers of the Detroit News kind of, let's just say, speculated, reported, whatever, respeculated that the ankle was bothering him after his increased workload in week 13. So maybe there's a little bit of a correlation here. If Swift is on the injury report, downgrade him. If he's not, you can maybe upgrade him. As of Wednesday, he is not on the injury report. Let's see if that changes on Thursday. Mecole Hardman returns to fill out our first wide receiver spot. Now, Hardman, with an abdomen injury, is in line to be designated to return from IR by the Chiefs, with Coach Andy Reid saying that the wide receiver will have a, quote, ramp-up process throughout the week. This is per Pete Sweeney of Arrowhead Pride. Hardman was actually starting to emerge as a real threat before going down with the injury. He played 4 games from weeks 5 through 9 and averaged 18.3 fantasy points per game, which ranked him as the wide receiver 9 over that span, just behind A.J. Brown and just ahead of teammate Juju Smith-Schuster. Now, intrepid fantasy managers should look to see if he's available on the waiver wire, as his skill set is something the Chiefs have missed over the last month. In our wide receiver 2 spot, Treylon Burks still isn't practicing as he looks to return from a concussion. Burks missed last week's game against the Jags after being injured in the first quarter in Week 13 against the Eagles. Without Burks, rookie tight end Chig Okonkwo caught a season-high 6 passes and scored against Jacksonville and has played himself into a significant role. Heck, I think he's played himself into a significant role even if Burks returns. But if Burks can't play this week, Okonkwo is basically the Titans' only chance of creating explosive plays in the passing game. So I would continue to roll with him as a viable tight end streamer. But let's keep an eye on Burks' status throughout the rest of the week. And in our flex spot, we have a true flex player. Do you need help at the tight end position this week? If you said yes, that's like 95% of most fantasy players. Well, the Texans are likely to employ a quarterback platoon between Davis Mills and Jeff Driscoll again this week against the Chiefs. Now, the Texans have signed Driscoll to their active roster, and that's important because he has tight end eligibility on fantasy websites, much in the same vein as Taysom Hill. The position is getting ever so slightly better with Dallas Goedert expected to return from injury and David Njoku already returned from injury. But using Driscoll instead of the Tyler Conklins and Tyler Higbees of the world is appealing. Driscoll threw for 38 yards and a touchdown last week and added 36 yards rushing on 7 carries, mostly in a red zone role. Now, the Texans are expected to get blown out by the Chiefs this week, just like they were expected to get blown out by the Cowboys last week. So in theory, there should be plenty of chances for Driscoll to score, especially if he sticks in this red zone role. He's a tricky pickup and somebody you don't necessarily want to trust, but there's a lot higher floor and more ceiling here than with a lot of the other tight end streamers. I'm Joe Dolan, and I want y'all to head to fantasypoints.com and subscribe to our super early bird special. You get 30% off and either a standard or premium package for the entire 2023 season up at the website. You will be glad you did. It's the best discount we offer all year. Our promo codes that I offer later in the year, those don't get to 30%. So you're going to want to go to fantasypoints.com and take advantage of that early bird special. Thanks, everybody. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Enjoy the Thursday night game.